Alright, congratulations on writing your first YAML. In the last video, we got started with this YAML right from the scratch. We learned how you could use different set of parameters like variables, triggers, pool, and we learned how you could use the YAML to configure your CI and CD. We only got started with CI, and this video is gonna be extension of the last video wherein we learn how you could create your own CI and CD pipeline specifically for Terraform. However, if you're coming from any of the other application background like .NET, Java, Golang, Ruby, Python, you could just use them as well. YAML is pretty important because the majority of the cutting edge technologies, be it Kubernetes, Helm chart, or any of the other configuration or CI/CD tool like GitLab or GitHub, majority of the tool uses YAML, and you should be kind of well versed how YAML kind of looks like. So this is the pipeline which we created, and we created a multi-stage pipeline. The first one was the build TF code, and then the second one was wherein we downloaded the code. This is going to be the extension. What we did was pretty basic. However, it was only the continuous integration part. The fun part is missing, where we also want to configure continuous delivery. We would learn how you could have a manual approval so that your commit can be viewed by somebody before it gets shipped onto certain environment. So let's get started. We left here wherein we downloaded the code. We're going to create another task. So we're going to start with the task, and what we want is we want a Terraform init or a plan task. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch onto our pipeline, go to our continuous integration, edit the pipeline, and probably steal some of the YAML snippet from here. So this task already performs the init task, so why would you care to write something from the scratch? So what you could do is you could just go to view YAML, copy the code, come back to your Visual Studio Code editor, and just remove the steps from here because we already have it. What we want is wanted to align it, because indentation is a key in YAML. So we've got your alignment done. So we've got over here is we've got the task just like the download pipeline, and then we have the display name, which is Azure RM init, and that's the task which has been published by the Terraform. You didn't have to write anything on your own. You've got your backend service and few of the parameters. We're gonna change them to our storage. So we've already got a storage. We're gonna replace these values with the storage which we have created. So I'm gonna head back to my Azure portal, go to the storage account, um, click on the storage and type in, copy the resource group name, which is Azure Devops, same, and then the storage account, which is AZDO storage AC, storage account name, and then the container. I trust we do not have a container yet, so we are going to create it. Give it a name as blob. Alright, has to be a lowercase. You might be wondering why we are doing this, because this is one of the requirement from Terraform. If you're doing it for some other sort of application, you won't even need them. So it depends on application to application. Obviously we can't cover all the application in one go. However, if it's for a different application, the parameter is going to change. I'm going to pick up the access key, keep it handy, come back to my code editor, and then paste in the code. The init is done, and that's what we want to do. So let's go ahead and probably use another task just like the plan. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the other task, view the YAML, copy the snippet, paste it right over here, remove the step, and make sure your code is indentation is proper. Yep, no error. Remove the empty spaces, give it a name as plan, command is plan, and all looks fine. So your stage is done. All you could do is now you could go ahead and do a git status. Once you're happy with the changes, do a git add, git commit -m added init and plan tasks, git push. All done. Let's go back to our pipeline, and we have our pipeline triggered automatically as soon as the change was pushed. So this is a multi-staged pipeline. The first one was build, second was download, and then it has got the new task, which is init and plan. Now what we're going to do is we're going to extend our pipeline and add the apply task. However, before applying the task, now apply in Terraform is pretty important because it's going to make changes to your infrastructure. Apply not only means that it's going to create the infrastructure, it can also mean that it might destroy certain infrastructure, and what it means is your underlying infrastructure can be deleted. So that's how it works. If you haven't worked well around with your states and something like that, it can simply destroy them, and that can be really hard time, give a hard time to the DevOps or infra engineer. So what we want to do is, before the Terraform code gets applied to certain environment, what we want is we want it to get reviewed by somebody. Somebody may be senior, somebody may be who has already worked on it, or if you're doing a pair programming, somebody who is pairing with you, so that you have another pair of eyes on top of your code. So what we're going to do is we're going to let the pipeline run in the back end, give it a permit option because it's downloading it. And this should be started. Yeah, this has started, and it should have multiple tasks underneath it. First one is the download of the artifact, and then it does the init, and then the plan. Nothing fancy, pretty basic and simple. We're gonna give it few more seconds so that we have all green before we jump onto our YAML in the code editor. Yeah, all looks okay. I'm gonna head over to the Visual Studio Code and start creating the apply. So what I want is I want to create a different stage altogether. So what I'm gonna do is I am going to create a stage and give it a name as apply. I'm gonna have a display name. Display name is going to be apply tf code. Remove the extra code. Cool. The next one would be jobs. Underneath the jobs, we would have a deployment. What we're gonna do now is I told you about we're gonna have a manual check so that everybody, one of us can view the code and see, okay, these are the changes, and now we are happy to make the changes onto production or some sort of environment. And to do that, you need to perform some changes in your code, in your YAML, and to the GUI. I'm going to show you. So first one is you type in the deployment, give a deployment parameter, and then you give the display name, give it as dev, and then the environment, which is going to be dev. I'm going to just differentiate this by doing a capital letter over here. And then the strategy, this is all required whenever you're doing the environment based deployment. I'm going to show you what it means. Then it's the deploy, and then the steps. Underneath the steps, you're gonna have a task, and the task gonna be, first I wanted to download the pipeline artifact, give it a display name just like we've done above, Just repeating the above code, nothing new over here. Because it's a different stage, we would have to download the code again because it spins up the Docker container every time you open a new stage. Got an input and the artifact name. Artifact name's gonna be, I'm gonna pick it right from here, Terraform. In fact, I'm gonna copy all of them and just paste it over here. Why do waste energy writing the same configuration again? Make sure you identize it. Cool. We've downloaded the code. Now what? Now there has to be an init which we are going to pick right from here. Do a Terraform init. I would rather copy the next one as well. Oops. Alright, looks fine. Come back right over here. So we've got the code copied over here. Just remove the clutter and make sure you have identized the code properly. Get the display name right over here. This one as well, and all of the input just beneath the input parameter. So we've got this sorted. Let's sort this one. Alright, so we've got all our tasks sorted. We're gonna apply this. And yeah, that looks okay. So how this stage is different from the above one. Remember, you've got something called as deployment and then environment. Now if you go to your GUI and go to your environment and you create an environment, give it a name as dev, make sure you select the resources none, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna click on approval and checks, click on approval and add an approval right over here, which is going to be AKS DevOps Shan. Hit on create, and yeah, that's pretty much all. Now if you push the changes, hopefully without any error, do a git status, just do a git add, git commit -m, and then give it a name as added, apply stage, git push, and this should be okay. Now it should have pushed the changes, and let's see the surprise how the environment and manual changes gonna help us achieving our deployment onto production environment. So we're gonna give it a few seconds before it reaches to this stage. The build is done. Download code is just starting off. Shouldn't be any problem in this. It should be good here, and as soon as it reaches dev, it should ask for a check. It should ask that, okay, we are going to apply onto dev environment. Are you happy with the changes? Should we apply or you want to reject it? So the plan is done, and it's going to move on to the next one. If you go back, you would see something as called as waiting right over here. If you click on this, you would see review, and review is going to ask you, okay, approvers needs to approve or reject this one. You could either reject or approve. Once you're happy, you could just approve it. Okay, happy with the changes, go ahead, hit on approve, and as soon as you hit on approve, it's gonna start performing the activities whatever you have mentioned in your pipeline. So yeah, that's gonna initialize the code again, download the artifact, init it, and then apply it. Obviously the name should have been apply. We've done typo over here, so it should have been apply. Now it's gonna initialize. Initialization is done. Now it's going to start applying the infrastructure for us. Alright, you see that you've started to create the infrastructure. It just started to create the resource group, public IP, DNS name. If you give a few seconds, you should have some sort of infrastructure coming up right over here. It's going to take a while to take few seconds, and within few seconds your deployment would be completed. And yeah, you've just finished completing your continuous integration and delivery pipeline using the YAML. This simple it was. If you go back to our pipeline, it was hardly 90 lines of code, and what we've done is we've created multi-stages. In the first stage, we checked in our code, built the code, downloaded it, initialize it, plan it, and then apply. In the apply section, we defined, okay, in the dev I want to have a manual check. Probably in your production, in a real environment, you might not have a dev. Probably dev you would be okay to go ahead. However, for non-prod or prod, you would like somebody to view the changes, because these changes are in production, it becomes a little difficult. So you want somebody to take a look at your changes, and once he or she is happy, you can just go ahead and make those changes. And yeah, that's apply seems to be completed. You have just created a bunch of infrastructure. If you go ahead and refresh the Azure portal, you should have a resource group. Yep, you have your Azure RM resource group, and you have a bunch of resources underneath your resource group. That's about it. I hope this was informative. I'm gonna see you in a while with some more fun tricks.